Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. In this video we're going to be planting our dahlias into containers. It's really great to have the dahlias now ready to be planting out. So the ones that I showed you on the previous video, I'm just going to go through those first. And the tallest one and the biggest one you probably saw last time was this one, and this one, I can't remember the name, was called Josie. And this one has a lot of good stems, and if you can see from the top bit, what I've done is I've pinched out the top, and now these side shoots are starting to form. So side shoots will form at each of these axils where the leaf is, and then further down they'll develop, and even further down there more will develop. And the idea of nipping the tips out of dahlias is essentially the same with any kind of plant really. It just means you're taking the apical dominance out and allowing side shoots to form, and those side shoots will make bushier plants carrying more flowers. That is the idea behind it. So there is a few on this little piece here and this little piece here, so potentially we can take out a bit more. So I'm going to just show you how we do it. So when it gets to maybe 2 or 3 leaves, so two or three sets of leaves, we count them first from the bottom. We have 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets. So going at around 2 or 3 sets is ideal, and then you can either pinch it out with your hand or just with your snips and just take that out. Now incidentally, that now makes really good cutting material. So if you do want to increase your stock, I'll put a link to another video that we've done regarding how to make cuttings from these extra tips. So you can make lots and lots more plants. And then just on this other one, I'll just show you this as well. So just nip out that growing tip, and we'll just get more side shoots growing, which essentially will carry more flowers. So that's the biggest one. The second biggest one is one called High Fidelity, and again you can see where I've nipped out the growing tip there, and now these are actually forming nice strong shoots at the side shoots, and there is even some side shoots starting to develop further down. So yeah, it's a good idea to do this. And then on the one that was struggling on the previous video and we was just checking to see if it was still growing, that is here now. And this one is called Bishop of Canterbury, and this one has lovely dark foliage, and now this can be ready for nipping out. So again, so on this you can see you've got 1 pair of leaves, 2 pair of leaves, 3 pair of leaves, and you've got a little tip there. You could possibly take that out, or you could just go with the 2 and just take it out there. And the same again, 1 pair of leaves, 2 pair of leaves, and I'm just going to take the tip out there. And then just on this one, I'll take the tip out there. And that one's done. So it did show that on the previous video that I did, there's even more growth coming from those tubers as well. So that's really good to see. We're going to have even more shoots from this one. And then we've got another one here, which is Safe Shot. And this is now ready to be nipped out. So I'm going to nip out the very tip of that one and the tip of that one. So that's all them done. So back to the job at hand. We're going to be planting these into containers. We don't tend to plant in the garden. Not only have we got no room, because it's just completely full as you can see, we don't like to have dahlias in the ground because the slugs can ravage them. And what we tend to find is if we plant them into containers, particularly if we keep them at our front garden, it just means that the slugs do not come and devour our prized dahlias. So that's what we're going to be doing. The pots I'm using are fairly big pots, so I'm going to plant out the 2 main ones firstly, and these are quite big containers. These are what have come with trees that we've bought. This one was the Sorbus tree, and this would have been probably another tree. So I'll put in the description, I'll put how big these are so you've got an idea, but you do want to be planting them in fairly big containers, fairly big and fairly deep. I am using plastic. You can also use terracotta if you've got them. Obviously terracotta of this kind of size is going to be very expensive, and it is going to mean that they are going to dry out very quickly, particularly if you have windy days, really hot summer days. So just need to be careful of your watering regime. So these will hold the water a little bit better, but we want to make sure that when we put in this compost in here, we're not putting compost which is going to clog and cause these to be sat in the moisture. We want the moisture to be free flowing. So what I've done is I've got a mix in here of just peat-free compost with added farmyard manure and a little bit of perlite. So the perlite's for drainage. The manure is there because we need to give these a lot of nutrition. They are very hungry plants, and manure is the perfect ideal thing to give them all that feed that they need. So I'm going to plant these, the first one in this big tub. It has lots and lots of drainage, as you can see. So if this was a container with just like the one hole, make sure you put a little crack over the top of it to make sure that the hole doesn't get clogged up with compost. But because we have lots of holes in these, we don't need to do that. I'm just going to put a layer of compost in the bottom firstly. Now, one thing that people always ask about dahlias is how deep should you plant them? Now, in my experience and what I was taught to do is when you're planting them out, so when you're planting them, when you're first starting them off in the springtime, you want to plant them quite shallowly. So just having the tubers just below the surface of the compost. When it comes to planting out, when they get to this stage, you want to be planting them deeper. You don't want to have the tubers showing. And the idea behind that is if you have the tubers showing, they are going to dry out much more quickly, and you can potentially have your tubers shriveling up. We are getting into summer now. It is going to be very hot during summer days, and what we need to be doing is making sure these don't dry out too much. You want to make sure we water them with regards to making sure that they have adequate water, but we don't want to have them dry out also. They want to be free draining, and you need to make sure that the watering is controlled. What you can do, the best way to determine whether any plant needs watering or not, is just put your finger in the soil around where the plant is, and if you get to about an inch or so down and you're finding that the moisture's still there, it doesn't need watering. What I have found useful, what you can buy, is one of these gauges, these moisture meters. Now I got this online and it was a couple of £2, and what you do is you put that in. Now with regards to your dahlia tubers, make sure you don't put this into one of your tubers and damage it. Put it along the side so it's not going to go directly into the plant, and just pop it down, and you'll instantly see on the gauge if it's dry, moist or wet. And if that's coming up moist or wet, you don't need to water it. If it's dry, give it a drink. So as you can see, I'm going to pop that inside there, and that is how probably deep it's going to be. So it can come out of its container. Be very careful not to damage any of the growth. Out it comes. A few of the leaves have fallen off there. You can see from the plant it's got adequate moisture. So we're going to place that now inside the bigger pot. So now I'm going to place the new compost around. I'm breaking some of these leaves by accident. Just be careful. So these have been growing inside in the protection of the summer house for most of the spring, and then as we got into May we started hardening these off. So these have had probably about 4 weeks now of being hardened off, and now they are okay to be left outside permanently until we get the frost in the autumn time. Bit of a shake. So that is one planted, and the depth of what I've planted it is probably a good few inches below the soil. So just make sure you pop the label back in so we know which is which, and then on to the next one. Lovely one here, High Fidelity, this one. It's got a lovely name, hasn't it? I bet there's so many lovely names for plants these days that it's spot for choice. So that one you can see is quite wet underneath. So I'm just going to pop that in there just like that. And again, it's fairly deep. Get this new compost all around this lovely plant. Now I know I'm planting in containers, but if you're going to plant in your borders, a similar method applies. You do need to plant them a good few inches deep, and if you do intend to leave your dahlias out for winter, if you do have a climate whereby you don't get very harsh winters, what you can do is planting them a little bit deeper than when you would do normally. Gives them that extra protection. And what I would suggest, if you are planting these directly into your borders, is you enrich the soil as you're planting it. So I'd add some organic matter into your planting hole, plant the dahlia in, and then add a mulch on top. It just makes sure that you've got adequate nutrition for these hungry plants, because these are really hungry plants, and you get best results if you do give them a good feed. And then what I would suggest as well is when you start to see the flowers starting to develop, I would then start a regime of giving them a weekly or a fortnightly feed with a high potassium fertiliser, and that will just encourage the flowers. So something like tomato feed, comfrey feed, something which has got a high amount of potassium in it, and that will just further encourage that lovely development of flowers. And let's face it, you want to grow these. I mean, the foliage is nice enough, but you're growing these plants for the flowers, so you've got to do as much as you can to encourage the flowers to develop. Now with regards to these two, because these are adequately watered already, the moisture in the soil that I've just taken the pots from was already wet. The moisture in the compost that I've just added to it is quite moist as well. We are having showers at the moment, so I do envisage that they're going to get some rainfall over the next day or so. So I'm not actually going to water these at the moment. I don't see the point in giving them extra water at this point when they're already wet from the container they're already in, and we're going to get some rain anyway. So I'm not going to bother watering these at the moment. If you're doing this and you tip the plant out and they're dry, then by all means give them a water. But for these two, I'm not going to bother. And then what I'm going to do is, now I've just freed up them 2 pots, I'm actually going to plant these 2 into these pots. And these probably won't be the final home, but it just means that we can get them growing a little bit more and then plant them into bigger pots in a few weeks or so. So again, you can see from this, that is the old stem, that old brown thing there, that's the old stem from the previous year. And these new shoots are growing just beside there. So if you upturn it, you can see it's very, very moist. We have had rain today, which is why they're already wet. I'm just going to plant them into this new compost. Just give them a little bit more room. Starting to get my excitement for dahlias back, because I've not grown them like this, as many as this, for a long time. And since having the front garden, which is predominantly slug proof and slug free, it does mean that we can grow these successfully without too much heartache. So this is probably, yeah, I get that into a new pot. So there we go. So that is the 4 dahlias, which I originally potted up in, I think it might have been April when I first did it. As you can see, these 2 are doing the best and these 2 are a little bit behind, but they will catch up and they will flower. So there's something to look forward to. These are going to go straight into the front garden now, and these 2 will just hold back until they get a little bit taller, and then they can go and join them in the front garden. So the main thing to take away from the video is, if you've not already pinched out the tips, that is something which I do suggest you do. You are going to get a lot more flowers by doing that and get bushier plants. Some people don't always pinch out the tips on the smaller, shorter grown varieties because they're already quite bushy anyway, but particularly with the larger varieties, it is really good to be doing that. You are going to get a lot more flowers, and it is going to be really, really beneficial to your flowering display. The next thing is regarding the transplanting. Make sure that you're transplanting them into a free draining compost mix. Add some extra grit, add some extra perlite if you do think that you need to have that, particularly when growing them in plastic containers. If you are growing in porous terracotta, you may not need to add that extra step in there because they are going to dry out fairly quickly anyway, and it's going to be more free draining because you've got the airflow through the porous material. I've already mentioned the watering. Don't overwater them. I know you sometimes can't control what happens with the rain and the rainfall that falls on our gardens. That's often from it's in our control. So if you do have a lot of rainfall, you don't be needing to be watering in addition to that. And you need to make sure that when it is dry and you're having dry periods, use something like a little moisture gauge, or place your finger into the soil and just check to make sure. And if it's dry, give them a water. If it's still moist, within a few inches deep, they probably don't need watering. Another thing is staking. These can be quite brittle, especially when they get nice and tall and start having the flowers on them. So what you can be doing now is thinking about how you're going to support them. If you're growing them in the ground, you can get things that go around the plant, like these hoops that we have around things like this. Perhaps put one along the other side to make it so it's completely enclosed. A good idea is using just a normal cane and just putting it in alongside the plant, being careful not to place it near the tubers, and just tying the main stems in. Good idea to do that as the plants are growing, so I'll probably do that beforehand, before they go into the front garden, just to make sure that these are not going to get damaged by any rain and wind we get. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. The last thing is, maybe when you do pinch out and you have more shoots like this, potentially you can also nip out these side shoots again to produce even more side shoots. I don't normally do that, but I do know some growers that do that. Have a play with it, see how you feel, see what happens if you do that, see if you like the result. I'm quite happy just to pinch out the once and just get the main side shoots developing. Other people may be wanting even more stocky, bushy plants. The thing with this is, the more you do pinch out, the smaller the blooms are going to be. Don't forget, these plants are going to be with us for a good number of years if we look after them. So try things now this year and see how it works, and then next year you can either repeat it if it's really good, or not bother if it doesn't work out as well as you planned it to be. So I'll leave the video there. I'm going to be in dahlia heaven when all these start to flower and we start getting lots and lots of colour from these. And please do like the video, please do subscribe, please drop any comments you have in the comments box below. We will see you very soon on the next video. In the meantime, please do take care, and as always, happy gardening.